We get countless videos sent to us of real life incidences, attacks, assaults, street fights for us to break down and analyze. This one was sent to us several months ago. It's one of the hardest probably to watch, right, of all. And it becomes even worse when you find out a little bit of the backstory. A 14-year-old girl named Naomi Johnson in Anchorage, Alaska was lured to kind of a slumber party at a house of her best friend, right, in quotes. And when she got there, she was violently, right, brutally attacked by at least 3 or 4 girls. There were other onlookers there, including some young men. And it was just one of the most ridiculous and gut-wrenching and difficult videos to watch when it comes to bullying that we've ever seen. So we just wanted to give you a fair warning. We want you to watch this, see this if you haven't already seen it, and then we want to address both this incident and some of the most common myths about bullying that allow incidences like these to take place and to happen. So check it out and we'll talk about it. As difficult as that was to watch, what's even worse is that there are thousands and thousands of children that are getting beat up and getting bullied, but there is no video camera, and they're not reaching out, they're not telling anybody, so there's no way for us to know and for us to help them. As much as it hurts for us to kind of even discuss and even showcase this video and the violence of this assault, it gives us the chance to talk about these incidences because they are happening. And if we don't talk about them, they will keep happening to a greater degree. In Naomi's case, for example, after the assault, the parents did not know what to do, you know, and they're desperate. So Naomi dropped out of school, she's doing homeschooling, and the parents were so desperate to give her a fresh start that they even considered moving to another location. I mean, literally, they have no idea what to do. They have no idea how it got to that point because the attacker, the bully in the situation was considered her best friend. So it's just something that has to be talked about because there are options, there are things people can do, you know, preemptively, and even after a situation like this to rebuild the confidence. So we wanted to make it very clear that we want to invite Naomi and her family. We want to basically sponsor them to come to California here, spend some time in Torrance. We don't have direct access to her, but anybody out there who does, please help us get into contact with her. We want to fly the family down, spend a week here training intensively here at the Greјsi Academy, and go over much of the Greјsi bully-proof, you know, youth empowerment and self-defense program because we have the tools and we've used them successfully in other very similar incidences like Austin McDaniel, who came down and learned the techniques, went back and never had problems with bullying since then. For people who don't live near any academy at all, Greјsi Bully-Proof Summer Camp once a year. We have a 1-week camp, 5 days here in Torrance, and this is the first year that we're doing it at over 20 locations outside of Torrance where kids can travel to these remote locations, certified training centers, and access the same 1-week empowerment opportunity that has been so successful for kids in Torrance for so many years. So check the website, bullyproofsummercamp.com. Now, we wanted to take this opportunity because obviously in terms of a technique, you know, techniques that could have benefited, you know, every single encounter in Naomi's particular situation, we could break down the specific details of how she was grabbed, when she was grabbed, how she was struck, and we would have techniques. Obviously, multiple attackers makes it very difficult with any set of martial skills. But in her case, we're not so concerned with talking about exactly what she could have done when someone grabbed her like this or like that. We're more concerned with addressing how it got to this point. Because that wasn't the beginning of the harassment. That wasn't the beginning of the harassment. She was bullied and lured to the slumber party by her so-called best friend. So we wanted to discuss some of what we call the most common myths about bullying to help parents understand early what they can do to prevent situations like this from happening. So what's the first one?
The first one is that friends don't bully friends.
I mean, this video is obviously proof. 100% friends bully friends. Now, good friends don't, but someone that you categorize as your friend can very well be one of the most aggressive perpetrators of violence
and abusers of the relationship.
And how do we know if the person is bullying or joking? That's something that you always ask.
What's the difference between joking and bullying? It's the first thing we teach the kids. Joking stops when you ask it to. Bullying doesn't.
So if I give you a wet willy and you say, don't do that ever again, and I'm doing it the next morning, there's a problem.
Even though we label him as a friend, he's not a friend. But kids need to hear this because they create these little social webs and engagements and relationships, and a lot of times they don't know how to categorize these behaviors and what they even are. But I think here's what's interesting. Some people don't know this, but sexual assaults, 78% of sexual assaults are committed by non-strangers, people that are familiar to the target of the assault. And sexual predators who commit assaults in a non-stranger fashion, someone that you know, familiar, they follow a very specific 4 phases. First phase, intrusion. They make jokes, sexual jokes. They touch you in certain ways. They do certain things to cross the line and essentially violate boundaries and try to cross, test, and press the boundaries. The second phase is desensitization. They want you to become so accepting of those boundary crossings that it becomes acceptable in our relationship.
Yeah.
It's normal.
They just do that.
That's just how they are.
How they are.
Right? And then once they're desensitized, the sexual predator will look to isolate when the opportunity is existing. They'll look to isolate their target to carry out the sexual phase 4, to carry out the sexual assault. Now here's what's crazy.
We don't know, but this could be exactly what happened with Naomi.
Her best friend probably conducted a lot of intrusive behaviors where they would hang out, and kids do this, where they make mean jokes, they spread rumors about each other, but then they make up the next day and they're on the phone talking and texting to each other, being best buddies.
They're just kids.
But she's crossing the line repeatedly in her aggressive behavior patterns, intrusive behaviors. It got to the point where Naomi thought, oh, she's just like that. She just says and does crazy things sometimes, but we're still best buddies, right? Until one day it was desensitized, and then the perpetrator, the bully in this situation, felt comfortable isolating, right? So she lured her to her house where she knew she would not have anyone else to help prevent the attack once it began. You guys, look at the similarities in the patterns. So the same way people can sexually assault people familiar to them, and it's so common, 78% or more, friends can bully friends. When there's a friend factor, there's a familiarity factor, and when there's familiarity, the boundaries are clouded. They don't respect the boundaries that exist. Versus if someone just jumped out of a bush and tried to grab you, there is no familiarity, so you would know to defend right away. So it's much more challenging. The most deceptive bullies are people you categorize as friends. It's crazy.
Number 2, zero tolerance school policy.
That they work. The myth is that they work.
They don't work.
They don't work. And not only do zero tolerance school policies not work, but they work against the policy followers.
And they work for the bully.
Yes. How?
Yes.
The bully knows that if I'm the bully and I'm asserting myself and I'm harassing Hidon on a daily basis, I know that as a good child, he cannot do anything, especially physical, right? So that way it'll never get brought up to the teachers. So since I know that Hidon is handcuffed by the school policy, I can abuse him as much as I'd like. As long as I don't cross the threshold of you outraging and swinging and fighting me, I can pester verbal harassment, rumor spreading, relationship, exclusionary bullying, all these types of harassment that may not be categorized as beating someone up, so they don't cross that line of being a fight, but everything up until that point the bully will abuse because he knows you can't do anything in response, especially physically. And in any other way because you don't want to be stung by the policy that is there to protect you but is actually handcuffing and harming you. So what's crazy, how can a parent work with this and what should they do?
Well, we have to have our own policy, right? In my family, I have a policy, and the policy is if you're being harassed, bullied, you can do whatever it takes to solve the problem. The goal is to give them the tools to solve the problem in the best way possible, in the safest way, right? And protecting the child, but also putting themselves first.
Because your child is very scared of school policy and even more so of parent, right, punishment when they get home for violating the policy. So what Hidon's proposing is by you essentially debunking the policy and telling your child, listen, regardless of school policy, if you ever stand up for yourself, you will never be wrong in our eyes.
And this is very easy to do for parents who have children training jiu-jitsu, because jiu-jitsu, when I see 2 children fighting and when one does jiu-jitsu, I don't classify that as a fight. I say, wow, look, there's one child controlling the situation.
Right.
Right? And when your child does jiu-jitsu and you know what jiu-jitsu means, how it doesn't involve punching and kicking, you're okay to tell your child, you know what, deal with the situation because you know they're gonna do it in a safe way.
Top bullying myth number 3 is that your child will tell you if they're getting bullied. This is so important. Me and Hidon were discussing this, and what we realized is that for a lot of kids, getting bullied by another child at school is the first time in their life that they've received punishment for no apparent reason or stimulus, right? A kid beats, punches his little sister, go to your room. Break a toy, go to your room. Do this. So there's different reprimand and different repercussions for a child misbehaving at home. At school, the child does not do their homework, does not pay attention, they get a bad grade in class or on a test. So all of these situations are stimulus and response. Stimulus is bad behavior, response is punishment from a parent, teacher, school, or whatever it might be in a bad grade. Bullying is a situation where, for no apparent stimulus, or no stimulus at all, the bully who learned those aggressive tendencies, bullies are not born, they're created. The bully goes to the child, harasses them because they like it and it energizes their social status, it really contributes to their social standing in school, and they do it. And the victim or the target of that harassment
Goes home.
what do they think though?
They go home with their head down and they don't want to say a word to anybody because they're just trying to figure out what it is that they did.
Yes.
And if they can't figure it out, then they're making things up in their mind as to why they deserve that and why it's okay.
So if they don't know the stimulus that caused the negative response, the bullying, they're gonna make something up and make themselves deserving of that harassment. This is a huge problem if you're a parent, because the most important thing is that your child does speak about it and that you have communication, you have open communication regarding any potential harassment that is happening at school or otherwise. You know what I compare it to? Bullying is like air being injected into a balloon. And it doesn't matter how strong the balloon is, it will eventually pop. You don't know when, you don't know where, you don't know how. Your child is the balloon. And as harassment is taking place, the balloon is filling up. Now, the popping of the balloon for a child may result or manifest itself in, depression. They don't want to eat, they don't want to do their homework, they don't sleep very well, their grades crash. That could be one way. Obviously, there's major depression. Suicidal thoughts have been associated to bullying. School shootings have been associated to bullying. So many violent outbursts of aggression have been associated with the balloon getting too full without any kind of diffusing opportunity.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. There has to be a release valve,
Yes.
on the balloon. And that release valve should be the parents.
Yes.
To come to the parents and speak to them.
And communicate.
And parents expect that. They expect like, wow, you've been getting bullied for the last 8 months? Why didn't you tell me? And speaking to my wife, she's very much, Victoria is very much into parenting right now and children. My wife always explains to me that, when my daughter falls on the ground and she hurts her knee, that sometimes as parents, most parents will grab the kid and say, oh, look at the knee, and they can tell that, it's not bleeding, there's no stitches, no bruise. They say, oh, you hit your knee in the ground, you're okay,
Yeah, you're okay, tough guy, you're a tough guy.
Here's my tough girl, you're my tough girl, and they kind of send her off on her way. And what that's doing is that's minimizing the experience,
the injury,
right?
Or whatever
the injury,
it was,
and what happened. Instead of, hey, you fell on the ground and you hurt your knee, and I'm here and hold the child. I'm here to hold you and support you, and I can see, do you need an ice pack? How can I help you through this? So I'm in no hurry to stop my child from crying, and I'm in no hurry to send them off to keep playing their game. I want them to know that when they are uncomfortable, when they're in pain, that I'm there for them no matter what. And by minimizing and kind of, rushing them on and pushing them out the door and sending them back out to their activity, who knows what you're creating. Now you have a kid who's one day 11 years old and is getting bullied and bullied and bullied.
And they're feeling pain. Yeah, they're in pain now.
And if they come to you, you might say, oh, it's not that bad, toughen up a little bit, stand up for yourself.
That's if they come. They're not going to come.
Well, that's if they come.
Because they know what they're going to get.
Well, my point is that if they come, you shouldn't say that.
Correct. My point is this, but that's created over time.
Yes, but they won't even come in the first place because they already know all you're going to do is kind of somewhat dismiss it.
Every time they've ever
it.
been hurt or felt hurt in their life, it's been minimized as, hey, don't worry about it. Just go, be tough. Go, stand up for yourself. It's no big deal. Don't worry about it. And if that's the response they're going to get, they're not going to bring it up to you. And if they don't bring it up to you, it just accumulates in the balloon, you guys. This is so important. So from an upbringing perspective, and I'm glad he's sharing this information with me right now. I got a 6-month-old.
And I'm glad Victoria is sharing with me so I can raise my kid.
I can't wait for my kid to scrape his knee and me to say, hey, Haven, it's okay. You know, it's okay that you're injured right now and that you're feeling this pain.
Yes.
Yeah. So you accept 100%. I'm so sorry you hurt your knee. I understand how much it hurts. And just let him feel that pain is critical. Because then later when he's 11 years old, if ever he gets bullied, he can come to me and say, Dad, this kid's saying this mean thing to me. And he knows that it will not be minimized. This is so major. In addition to that, how else can you ensure that your child will speak to you about bullying when it happens? Make bullying a regular, everyday discussion in the household, at the dinner table, regular. Demystify bullying. Because bullying is not the kind of thing that you only want to address when it happens, because then the mysterious nature of the relationships and how they're being abused will be a mystery to the child. But imagine if the kid's 6 and you say, hey, or even sooner, say, hey, are there kids at your school who do mean things? Yeah, Daddy, there's one kid who did this to that girl over there. Oh, interesting. Why do you think that kid did that? And explain to them the concept of how some kids learn mean things and do them to other kids, and how it's not right, and how bullying is a real thing that exists. Do you understand? So that if ever that real negative energy that exists and is a tangible, understandable concept is directed at your child, they will recognize it for what it is and not categorize it as the deserving harassment, like the stimulus and the response that we talked about. There's not a deserving response to some unknown stimulus that they caused themselves. Ultimately, self-defense boils down to boundary setting, right? It boils down to being able to draw the line, and if the line is crossed, defend yourself. Verbally, asserting yourself. Physically, protecting yourself and neutralizing the bully. But here's the worst part, is children will not establish boundaries that they're not capable of enforcing. But to say, hey, Johnny, go stand up for yourself. You're telling him to go establish a boundary. Tell him to stop. Go punch him in the face.
Hey, go take surfing lessons, and you can't even swim.
Unacceptable. You guys, you can't ask your child to stand up for him or herself unless you have provided them the tools to do so.
So before you tell them that, think about, what do they even know? They know how to, play soccer. And that's all they know when it comes to the physical body. So go get them in jiu-jitsu lessons. Yeah. So when the day comes where you say, you know what, stand up for yourself.
They say, yeah, I can do that.
Yes.
I have the tools. I've been taught how to not only verbally assert and interact with the bully to neutralize it preemptively, but I've also know that if he does attack, I have the resources to defend myself. And what's crazy is that the willingness to assert yourself early, preemptively, and very assertively to the bully is probably the reason why you will not have to fight them physically.
I've never been in a fight.
There you go. When your son or daughter says no, it will mean no.